What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of Cage My IQ. This is the UFC Vegas 53 four-card breakdown and Ben Nod show with yours truly, Cage. And as always, here's my co-host, Jim. How's it going today, Jim?
It's going good, man. I'm ready to break down this card. This one's going to be a good one.
As you can hear right there in the background, so are my kids. You're going to be hearing them there. They're going crazy out there. But right before we get started with the action today, just give a shout out to our sponsor at High Tide Herbal. If you don't know who High Tide Herbal is, check out the video right now.
Offering high quality, sustainable products with all natural, lab tested ingredients, it's High Tide Herbal's mission to help others live the longest, healthiest, and most productive lives possible. Their hemp derived CBD products have a wide variety of uses, from helping sore muscles to skin hydration and minimizing skin irritation. They generate results based on your specific needs. Elevate your lifestyle with the new wave of wellness. Visit hightideherbal.com to learn more.
That is High Tide Herbal. All you got to do is go to www.hightideherbal.com, go to checkout, and put in promo code CageMyIQ10 to receive 10% off your next purchase. Once again, that's CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. Before we get started with the breakdown, of course, this is Cage My IQ. As always, all we ask for you guys to do, if you're tuning in right now and you haven't done so already, is to please hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the notification bell. So whenever the content gets put out, you guys are the first to get it. And then please smash the like button down below and then hit us up in the comment section and let us know what you think of the video and let us know who you think is going to win on UFC Vegas 53 Font versus Vera. But before we get started with this card, Jim, what were your thoughts on this card before we get going with the breakdown?
Well, I think the main event is amazing. I think it's a
Yeah,
really good matchup. I'm really looking forward to it. There's really a contrast of styles between the two guys, but I also like that this is kind of a quote unquote underdog card because
yeah.
there's a lot of unknown fighters to more casual fans. There's a lot of debuts being made, and a lot of different matchups if I do say so myself. So
Yeah,
I know a lot of people I've been reading online are a little underwhelmed with this card, but I think this card's one of those sleeper cards that's going to actually be really, really good.
yeah. It's also been affected by the cancellation and reschedule bug. We had a couple of fights that were scheduled for this one that got pushed back to UFC 274, and then we had a couple that were scratched due to injury or COVID. So
Yep.
that kind of killed it there, which is why it went down from 13 fights to 11 fights. But other than that, I do like the main card fights, and then I like the fact that the prelims have a lot of guys making their debut or looking to make a name for themselves. That's why we got the fight night cards for more so those guys rather than the established stars, and that's why I gravitate towards these ones a little bit more than the pay per view.
Yeah, I mean, you get a chance to look at young, hungry
Yeah,
fighters that you may never get a chance to aside from these fight nights. So
yeah.
it's a privilege to have these fight nights and not just pay-per-views.
And that's a great segue to the first fight on the prelim. We got a matchup between two guys in the flyweight division making their debut. You got Tatsuro Taira going up against Carlos Candelario. Uh, Tatsuro is 10-0, 5-0 in his last five fights, whereas Candelario, aka the Cannon, is coming in at 8-1, 4-1 in his last five fights. Of course, he lost the contender series fight against Victor Altamirano, in which he still got a contract, which was the first on the show. They train out of Paraseta, Okinawa gym, and then Underdog MMA gym. Of course, the fans are leaning 91% towards Taira, whereas only 9% are going with Candelario. Jim, what are your thoughts on this debut fight, and then who you think is going to win?
Yeah, this is exactly what we talked about. Two fighters that the main public don't really know, right? not a lot of tape on these guys besides just like going down deep rabbit holes in YouTube
Yeah.
or UFC Fight Pass. I have Tatsuro Taira winning this one. I feel that his ground game is the difference maker in this fight. Candelario has good hands, but I think he's going to be overpowered by Tatsuro's ability to get the fight to the ground. Tatsuro has been winning fights with strikers and still has been able to get them to the ground and submitted them, which I think is what's going to happen in this one. Candelario is going to put up a good fight. It's a good matchup, but I think he's going to be outgunned. I have Tatsuro Taira by first round submission.
Yeah, I think it's a matchup between Tatsuro, who has a Muay Thai background, and then of course he has great movement, and then the BJJ that's ever grown. He's
Yeah.
added that to his repertoire, like you said. In the last 3 fights, he's won by sub, but it's really he hasn't really used the grappling part of that until like he strikes at an opponent, stuns him, and then he jumps on him, and then his his transition to the back of an opponent is so quick. Like
Yeah.
he does it like it's nothing, and then that's when he showcases his grappling. Whereas Carlos Candelario has that boxing background. It's really almost one dimensional with him because he doesn't do too much with the grappling. He's been trying to work on it. Like he's been able to get the top of opponents at times, but he's not really good with those entries. So he relies heavily on his movement, his hand speeds, he uses the jab, and then he likes to use a hook and then a overhand shot, and he has really good cardio. But I think he's gonna what's gonna be his weakness is the takedowns. Like you said, he's had issues with that in the past 2 fights. That's why he lost to Victor, and then that's why he struggled against Candido on the first attempt at the Contender Series, where he did win. It was getting taken down, but luckily his cardio was better than Candido, and Candido kind of started to tire out and allowed the striking of Candelario to get going. But I think in this one, the patience of Tatsuro is going to be the difference maker. He's going to be able to move around, pick and choose his shots. He's going to stun Candelario, and he's going to jump on him and get the rear naked choke, just like he's had the success the past 3 fights in Japan. So I'm going with the same as you. I'm going round 1 submission via rear naked choke.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the outcome a lot of people are going with, just because of how good his transitions are. They're very seamless, and his strategy is really good. Work your opponent on the feet, lull him to sleep, and then take his back.
He's going to be one of those prodigies because he's only 22. He's
Yeah,
very
it's crazy.
young, and yet he still has 10 fights under his belt because he's done a lot in Japan. Now we got to see how it translates to the UFC, because it's one thing to fight there, but then it's another thing to fight the talent here in the UFC. But I
Yeah.
think he'll be able to transition nice against some of these opponents, and then just get better over time as he gets that top level experience.
Yeah, this is a good fight for both of these guys making their debut.
Yep. But let's move on to the second fight on the prelims. We got a welterweight matchup between Yohan Lainesse going up against Gabe Green. You got White Line versus Gifted. The White Line comes in at 8-0. He is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, coming out of Canada. And then you got Gifted, who's 10-3, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He's fighting out of California, as you see right there. And then they train at a Brazilian top team, Canada, and Technobox Boxing, and then Tracy Hess Subfire MMA Gym. The majority of fans are leaning towards Lainesse at 79%, whereas 21% are going towards Gabe Green. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you got winning this one?
Yeah, I have Lainesse winning this fight. Green is more of a submission style fighter who, as of late, has struggled against power strikers, which is the exact fighter that Lainesse is. Lainesse is well rounded with good boxing and good BJJ, which will negate Green's ground game. Just kind of like what we were talking about before, the transitions that Yohan has are pretty seamless, and his hands are lightning. So I have Yohan Lainesse by second round knockout.
Both of these guys have really good pedigree. The only loss that Gabe Green has was to Daniel Rodriguez, who
Yep.
just had better boxing. They actually were supposed to fight before on the regional scene, but didn't, and then they got a chance to here, and Rodriguez won by decision. He's coming in with a boxing background. He has really good movement. He has a tough chin. He has really good cardio. Really good cardio. Like he doesn't tend to tire out at times. He's very good with picking his spots. But he's going up against a guy in Yohan Lainesse who had just won the CFFC title against Cuts. He's undefeated. He's undefeated 8-0. Just had to double check. And he has main card material written all over him. He has a kickboxing background. He has the ever-grown BJJ. He has a big-time boxing skills on top of that. He is really good with movement. He's really good with the combinations and the speed. You just said it before. He has power in his shots, but he knows when to use it. Like he throws those calf kicks, and he literally right after he throws a calf kick, he throws a nice overhand shot right afterwards. And then he avoids the big shots defensively. His defense is what makes him main card material. But the one weakness he has is the ground game. He has his one loss on the amateur scene in his amateur debut was a submission. So I think that won't be too much of an issue in his first couple fights, but something later on to keep an eye on. But I got him winning second round KO here. I just think that the power shot's going to be too much for Green, and he's going to be able to attack him from all over, where I think Gabe Green's going to be primarily his hands.
Yeah, I mean, we're 2 for 2 in this card so far, and Gabe Green is a gifted fighter, no pun intended because of his nickname, and has a bright future in the promotion. He's just walking into somebody who, in both of our opinions, is just slightly more dangerous.
Yes, I definitely agree. And just like I said, I could see him in a couple of years breaking that top 15 of the welterweight division, which would be really good because imagine him fighting those guys in that top 15 already there. That'd be crazy good because just like I said, it's always good to have a couple things under your belt, like experience wise. And he has not only boxing, but kickboxing and BJJ. So he's being able to put it together seamlessly.
Yeah, he needs to stay active. That's the one thing. You want to get ranked, you stay active.
Yeah. But let's move on to the next fight on this prelim. We got a men's lightweight matchup between Mike Breeden going against Natan Levy. In this matchup, you got Mike Breeden, and then Natan Levy doesn't have a nickname. Breeden is coming in at 10-4, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Levy is coming in at 6-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train out Glory MMA and then Syndicate MMA gym. You got the fans are lean 90% heavy towards Levy, whereas only 10% are lean towards Mike Breeden. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, man, this is a tough one. And usually I don't go against Glory because James Krause is such an excellent coach. But I have Levy in this one. I think he has good grappling and a really good submission game. While Breeden has power and uses multiple tools to end the fight, we know that because he's from Glory MMA, there's a lot of wrestling and a lot of grappling there too. But the difference is Breeden's takedown defense, which is a work in progress in my opinion. But given this matchup, I think Levy exploits that and gets Levy to the and gets Breeden to the ground and gives Levy a decision win.
Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Natan Levy by a third round submission here. I feel like Breeden has that grappling background. He just doesn't use it nearly as often as he should. He relies a lot on his hands. He has a good speed. He has an aggressive movement. He's always attacking his opponent. He's had a good chin of late, and he knows how to get those combinations off. but he's really heavily reliable on his striking, whereas Natan Levy is coming out of Israel. He went on over to Japan and he has his third degree black belt in karate. But then he's been ever grown with that Brazilian jiu-jitsu ever since coming over here to Vegas. He trains. He's been training there for the past 7 years. It's been grown seamlessly, and he evolves that around the karate. He has that karate stance. He throws a lot of those high kicks to the face, to the stomach, and then, of course, the lower calf kick. But then he has really nice hands as well. He's able to seamlessly use his leg kicks with his hands. But the big thing is going to be his grappling in this matchup. He's going to be able to get up close and grapple Breeden along the fence to avoid his power shots. And then I think he gets him down and wears him out. And then late in the third, I think he gets him with a Darce choke. Majority of Levy's wins have been by submission. He just has really good submission entries, some of the best in UFC. You just wouldn't know it because of he's only been in the UFC for just a cup of tea. So I'm going to go with the third round submission by Levy.
Definitely not the type of fighter you would think based off of that picture.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think he'd have a great ground game. He looks like a Street Fighter villain.
Yeah.
But his ground game, like you said, ever growing, but like really underrated. Which is, I was juggling between a decision and a submission, but I stuck with Glory a little bit just without that submission.
Yeah, and the only reason he lost to Rafa Garcia last fight was because of Rafa Garcia taking him down several times. That was the difference in that fight. And I think Garcia learned from that fight, and that's why you saw a more complete Garcia in his past fight the other week.
Yeah. Rafa looked good in his last fight.
Yeah. But let's move on to the next fight on the prelims here. Once it pops up, we got a fight between Daniel Da Silva, aka Daniel Lacerda, going up against Francisco Figueiredo in the flyweight division here. You got Miojo going up against Sniper. Miojo's coming in at 11-2, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Whereas Figueiredo is coming in at 12-4-1. He's 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. They train our ATS team gym, and then you got Team Figueiredo gym on the other side. The fans all lean towards 66% Figueiredo, whereas 34% are going with Da Silva. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and then who do you have winning?
I am right there with the Tapology community. I have Figueiredo in this one. He's a submission specialist who isn't afraid to mix it up on his feet. Da Silva has power. We're not going to underestimate this man's power, and is also good on the ground. So it's kind of an even matchup. But in his last fight, he was outstruck, and if you watch closely, he seems either gas out or become too comfortable with his hands, and he drops them, and he keeps them low, which I believe will lead to a second round Francisco Figueiredo knockout, just because he keeps those hands low.
I do agree with that, but then at the same time, Figueiredo has the same issue where his hands are always down low majority of the time. And he's definitely a submission guru. Like he has one of the best entries into submissions in the game. But he has cardio issues. His striking isn't on par with his brothers. His game plan is to clinch up with you, push you against the cage, and then try to pull you down into one of those submission entries. Whereas Silva is going to move around, look for those vicious calf kicks. He's going to look to throw those bombs at you. But then he's really good at the takedowns. He took Jeff Molina down. Molina just got kind of lucky. He was able to roll over on top of him and then was able to get that get the fight taken in his way there. But I got Daniel Da Silva by first round knockout here. Figueiredo has been chinny in his fights, and I think Silva's going to knock him out. So I'm going with Silva here.
I kind of just went with the dark horse in this one and said, let's go against the grain. Submission specialist, let's go with a knockout. You never know what
Yeah.
could happen. Stranger things have happened. So yeah, we're the first one we're kind of opposite on in this card.
Yep. Well, let's move on to the next fight on the prelims here. Once it pops up in a second,
Gina
we got a
Mazany and
fight
Shayna
featuring
Young.
Gina Mazany going up, and then I believe it's going to be contested at flyweight, which it is. Gina Danger Mazany is coming in at 7-5, 2-3 in her last 5 fights, whereas Shanna the Shanimal Young is coming in at 7-4, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. They train out Extreme Couture Gym and then Knoxville Mixed Arts Academy Gym. The fans are leaning towards 83% Mazany, whereas only 17% are leaning towards Young. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I think this is a good matchup. I'm going to go with Mazany, just like the fans did. I'm going to go with her in this one. Young is very susceptible to the takedown, which is Mazany's go-to. Mazany struggles against aggressive knockout strikers, but I see her getting this fight to the ground and controlling most of the fight on the ground and using her ground and pound to get the fight and get the win. At first I wanted to go, this is more of a control time fight where she's going to lay on her and she's going to just point fight her. But with this one, I actually think that she's going to ground and pound. She's going to outwork Shayna Young, and she's going to stop Shayna Young in the second round via ground and pound. So I have Gina Mazany, second round stoppage.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun fight because both of them have been struggling a little bit, but Gina Mazany has a really big grappling background. She trains at Glory MMA, of course.
Well, she's at Extreme Couture now.
Yeah, no, I said she was training at
Oh, sorry.
Glory MMA, and she was able to harness her grappling there. Then she, of course, made the move to Extreme Couture because she needed to get some stability with that. And Extreme Couture is going to allow her to work on the striking part of it as well. Whereas Shanna Young is coming into here. She has a kickboxing background. Yeah, she's really good with the legs.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of uses that in kind of karate style, but not too much. It's just more the stance. If you saw in the Macy Chasson fight, she kept on spamming the high kick to the face, and she had a lot of success there. She likes to target all parts of the body with those leg kicks, but she tends to go too much with the leg kicks and not enough with her hands. And when she gets her hands going, she does really well. It's just that she likes to always revert back to the legs. And then the one thing that's been her glaring weakness in every fight is her takedown defense. She's been taken down very easily. She's done well striking on the feet with Miranda Maverick and Invicta Macy Chasson. She even had success in her last fight, but it's always been predicated for her opponent to get the fight to the ground. And what is Gina Mazany going to do? That's what she's going to do. She's going to get the fight to the ground. And I could see her getting her first submission here in round 2 because Sharna leaves herself open to, and she always lets her opponent get the back of her. And then that's where I feel like we see a second round rear naked choke submission for Gina Mazany.
You made a great point about the leg kicks.
Yeah.
When you have somebody who is great on the ground and looks for any opening they can get to take you to the ground, you need to kind of dial back on the leg kicks, in my opinion. And I think what you have mentioned about Shayna is that at times she becomes trigger happy with the legs.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to give Gina a chance to catch the leg, trap the leg, run her to the fence, sweep the leg, Cobra Kai style, and get her on the ground. And it's crazy. We're both on the same round, but just different methods.
Yeah, and she's one of those fighters that loves to push her opponent against the cage and then get the leg sweep to get them down. That's one of her go-to moves in the octagon.
Yeah, and if you're gonna come out with that full karate background, it might be a really rough night.
Yep. Let's move on to the first fight on the main card. We got a men's featherweight matchup between Andrei Touchy Theory going up against Joanderson Tuberere Brito. Fili comes in at 21-8. He is 2-1-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Brito comes in at 12-3-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train out Team Alpha Male and then Shootbox Bararo. The fans are leaning towards Andrei Fili at 88%, whereas only 12% are going with Brito. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is one of those fights that when you look at the fan vote, it tells you that it might go the opposite way. Because you look at the trajectory of both of these fighters' careers right now, and you said two and one for
Yeah.
Andrei and
And then
4-1 for Joanderson.
It really should be 3-2, but he was dominating that fight. But then the eye poke made it a no contest.
Absolutely agree. Which is why, thank you for segueing into it, is why I'm going with Andrei Fili in this fight. Despite his last 5 fights, I think he's fixed holes in his game and
Yeah.
he's become more of a complete fighter. Brito has been on a tear. I'm not going to underestimate that, but has lost to lower volume strikers. And Fili is really just incorporating leg kicks and that jab, which has been a big difference maker in a lot of his fights, which is partly the reason why there's been that eye poke, because he's using that jab so much, he's keeping his hands open. I think he's going to fix that problem. He's going to land the jab early and often, and I have Andrei Fili racking up a ton of volume and winning by decision.
Yeah, and the one big thing that looms large over Brito is his cardio. In the fight against Algeo, he had a great first round where he basically, to me, dominated it, but then he fell off because he got himself too worked up in that first round with the power shots, because all of his strikes are basically, he puts a lot of power into them all. He just tired himself out, and then cardio's been an issue with him if he doesn't knock you out early on. Whereas Andrei Fili has really good cardio. He has really good hands. And he likes to throw those leg kicks from a distance because of that tall frame that he has.
Yep.
He throws the low calf kick. He throws the spin kick. He likes to hit you up high. But then he has great hands. One of his favorite things to do is to spam that stiff jab.
Mhm.
He uses it a lot because he likes to keep that range, and that's his range right there, is using the jab, and then he gets his overhand hook going right afterwards, and he's just been able to touch people up, and then you got even his wrestling that you just forget about with the grappling, and that's why he's at Team Alpha Male. He likes to harness that, and because he can win by not only by knockout but by submission too. He has a couple wins under his belt that way. But I think in this matchup, I got him like you. I got Andrei Fili by decision here. He's going to rack up a lot of volume. He might stun Brito a couple of times, but I think Brito has a good chin. Right now, it's just his cardio is really bad, and that's why I'm going with the high volume level of Andrei Fili by decision.
Yeah, the cardio thing is big with me because
Yeah,
with Brito, it feels like he's just throwing to knock the fight, like get the fight
yeah,
done quick because he knows he can't go full 3 rounds, and keep that same pace. Fili definitely can. I think he's like a day one team
yeah,
alpha male. He's come up through the ranks with them, and primarily we've always talked about team alpha male and their onus on wrestling. Um, which was like his go-to in the early fights. But now, man, he's put together that jab, the leg kicks. He's such a complete fighter. Plus, he's got a pretty cool "Where the Wild Things" tattoo is. So,
yeah,
yeah, I got to go with Andrei Fili. He reads comic books, man, and I'm the
yeah,
active geek. I got to make sure I
yeah.
go with my boy.
He's just become a different person than when he joined the gym. He was always getting into trouble, and then he gives a big thanks, of course, to Uriah Faber for allowing him to come in there and train. And then he's one of his biggest motivators there, one of his biggest like advocates once he joined there. So like he's voted him as one of the guys that has changed him into a better person because of that.
Yeah, Uriah Faber gets a lot of respect from his people. That's why you
Yeah,
see a lot of people switching fight camps and going to Alpha Male. It's
yeah,
a gold star for his character.
yeah. But let's transition to the next fight on the main card. We have a men's lightweight matchup between Jared Gordon going up against Grant Dawson. You got Jared Flash Gordon, and then you got Grant KGD Dawson. Gordon comes in at 18-4, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, whereas Dawson is 17-1-1. He's 4-1-0 in his last 5 fights. They train out of Sanford MMA and Renzo Gracie Academy. And then you got Glory MMA on the other side, another Glory MMA fighter on this card. The fans are leaning towards 84% Dawson, whereas 16% are leaning towards Gordon. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I like this matchup a lot. Um, I like both their styles. I like both the way both fighters.
Yeah.
I'm going with Glory, man. I have Dawson winning this fight. Lately, Gordon has been a decision fighter, while Dawson has been finishing his fights, albeit some of them at the last second,
Yeah.
by the skin of his teeth. But Dawson is known more for his ground game, but he does have hands, and he likes to use his hands to set up the takedowns. I believe Dawson keeps the fight standing for a round, shoots for the takedown, gets it in the second round, and locks in a submission for a second round submission win for Grant Dawson.
Yeah, he's a big time wrestling opponent here for
Yep.
Gordon. Dawson likes to spam the takedowns. He goes anywhere from 7 to 15 takedowns a fight. I feel like where he attempts in the last fight where he went to a draw, he had a bunch of those, and then that's what kind of caused him almost lose the fight was the fact that he tired himself out spamming for the takedown so much. And against a guy like Jared Gordon, he's not going to be able to do that because he has a wrestling background as well, but he has a striking background
Yep.
on top of that. He has really good hands, really good movement. And I could see him stuffing some of those takedowns. It's just going to come down to can Gordon do enough volume towards Grant Dawson compared to Grant Dawson taking him down and doing some control time and ground and pound. It's going to come down to that. And that's why right now I'm leaning towards Jared Gordon in this one by decision. I feel like he's going to do a bunch of volume on the feet. I could see him taking down Dawson 2 times in this fight. I see Dawson taking him down a couple of times, but I think it's going to come down to the last round. I think they're going to each take round 1 and 2. It's going to come down to the round 3, and I think Dawson tends to get tired in round 3, and Gordon usually is pretty good in round 3, cardio wise. I see him taking over and sneaking out that round 3 with his hands. So I got Gordon by decision.
I'm not surprised. I kind of thought this was going to be the route you were going to go.
Yeah.
This definitely could be a fight that is closer than
Yeah.
I believe, and a lot of other people believe. Can you go down to that fan score one more time? Just so I
Yep.
can get these. Yeah, I think that this is more of like a 65-35
Yeah.
instead of 84-16. That one doesn't make any sense. And, the beauty about this card is you're getting a lot of younger fighters who are hungry to get into the
Yeah.
rankings, as opposed to next week's card 274, which is a lot of elder statesmen fighters, and a lot of possible retirement fights. This is
Yeah.
the card that's going to be, 5 years from now, we're going to see these guys on the main card of, UFC 374 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. But so we're going on different sides of the wheel on this
Yep.
one. But let's transition to the next fight on the main card. We got Jared Meerschaert going up against Krzysztof Jotko in the middleweight division. As you see right there, you got Gerard GM3 Meerschaert, who comes in at 34-14. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And then you got Krzysztof Jotko. He's 23-5, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train at a Galar, a Combative Systems Gym, and then a Planet Eater Gym. The fans are going towards 58% GM3 and then 42% towards Jotko. So it's pretty close of a margin right there. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I honestly feel like we talk about Krzysztof Jotko like every month.
Yes.
Like he's always fighting, but either we talk about him and the fight gets scrapped, or he actually does fight. But I think that this is a good matchup. Both are low volume strikers as of late who prefer to get the fight to the ground. Jotko is the aggressor when it comes to takedowns, but Meerschaert is able to work from bottom and lock in a submission. That's why when you went down to the
Yeah.
fan score, a lot of people have him by submission. I think we'll see a lot of feeling out and battling for position in this fight. This is going to kind of be like a typical Krzysztof Jotko fight, where it's going to be a lot of dancing around the cage, shooting for takedowns. But I think GM3 is going to be a little more active and get the decision win.
Yeah, you got GM3. You hit the nail with that. He's a submission guy. Majority of his fights are won by submission. I think he has a couple of decisions within those submission wins that he's had. And then he's no slouch to dropping guard when somebody's about to take him down to get into those entries. He's done it the past couple of times, and it's been in his favor, except for, of course, against that killer Shemaev who
Yeah.
took him out. But then you got Krzysztof Jotko, who's the master at defense. His way of defending the high volume opponents who like to strike is to just clinch up with them. He clinches up with them, and which allows him to dictate the fight. He likes to do a lot of those knees and elbows in the clinch, and then he likes to do the body lock to take down to get his opponents down. And that's why he's been able to win these low volume fights against his opponents in the UFC. But I think he's going to bite more than he could chew with this matchup because that's what he's going to do. But he's going to fall into GM3's game plan there and getting the fight to the ground. And then that's when he's going to win via arm triangle here. I think he's going to get a triangle on him once he gets taken down. And I think it's round one submission for Gerard Meerschaert here.
So an
And you can
early
pick the
sub.
video. Yeah. I think it's going to be mid to late first. But with how these guys like to fight, I think it's going to lean towards GM3.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it leans towards GM3. Krzysztof Jotko reminds me of Marcin Held.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like the Polish connection, and maybe they've
Yeah.
trained together at Planet Eater, which, by the way, great gym name.
Yeah.
But they both remind me of the same of each other. GM3's got this fight for sure.
Yeah, it's a if he doesn't do that, I still think that he's able to get that volume. And then with you saying decision, I could see that too. If he doesn't get that submission with how low output that Jocko puts in.
Yeah. Everybody usually sees Jotko and they assume he's a striker and that it's
Yeah,
going to be like a high volume fight. It's
yeah,
not. Like you said, master of defense, master of, he's he's like a strategist. You know what I
yeah,
mean? He's Batman minus the fighting. He's already
yeah,
has the game plan mapped out.
yeah. Let's move on to the featured fight on the main card. We got a men's featherweight matchup between Darren, the Damage Elkins, going up against Tristan Boondock Connelly. You got Elkins, who's 26-10. He is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, whereas Boondock Connelly is coming in at 14-7, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train at Duneland Valley Tudo Gym, and then Checkmont Vancouver Gym. The fans are leaning towards Elkins 71%, whereas the 29% are only leaning towards Conley. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight and who you have winning?
I think this is a very fun matchup. I have Elkins winning this one. I think he will spend most of the fight controlling the octagon. Conley is really good at taking people's back, but Elkins has good grappling and is a very durable fighter. We've seen him go to war so many times. I wouldn't be surprised if by 3 minutes into this fight, Darren Elkins is bleeding out of some part of his face
Yeah.
because that tends to be the trend. I think Elkins does just enough to win this
Go
by
sit down.
decision. I'm sitting.
Yeah, yes, you are.
But I think I don't think that Elkins is going to sit down Conley to go off of what you were saying. But I think that Elkins is going to win this by decision. Although I do love Tristan Conley's nickname of Boondock.
Yep.
never considered Vancouver the Boondocks, though I've
Yeah.
never been there, so it absolutely could be.
Yep. And you got my joke with the sit down
Of course, man.
reference there. But I'm leaning towards Tristan Connelly here. I got him
Ooh.
by round 2, ground and pound here. I think the one thing that we've seen with Tristan Connelly in his fights is the ability to get the fight to the ground and to get the fight in his way. He's a very tough fighter. They both are tough fighters, but watching him do to Mikel for Figueiredo,
Yeah.
what he did, which was basically just dominate him. He basically wore him out, and then just was able to get that victory over a guy like him with that capoeira background. Did this crazy flips. He did a rolling thunder on him, but it didn't phase Connelly because he acts more like a bully in the octagon. He just keeps on coming at you. Whereas Darren Elkins, he takes a lot of damage, like you said. He bleeds easily. He stands in front of you. He bangs with you, but he takes a lot of brunt to it, and he either gets knocked out or he tends to wear out towards the end. And I see Tristan Connelly take him down and just do a lot of control with him. I think he prefers control over position. And I think in round 2, he's going to wind up just ground and pounding him. I think Elkins is prone to that at times, where he just leaves his face open, and that's what's going to happen. I got Tristan Connelly pulling off the upset with the round 2 ground and pound victory.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely leaves his face open for
Yeah.
sure. Like we've seen it. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just going based off of just the body of work I've seen more of Darren Elkins than I have of
Yeah.
Tristan Connelly, and maybe that kind of influenced my decision. I'm not going to flip flop. I'm going to ride with Elkins, but you do post a convincing argument for going for Connelly.
When you can convincingly beat a guy like I said, like Figueiredo,
Yeah,
that makes me notice him more, even though he doesn't have that great of a skill. Like it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's basic, but he's the basic. I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna defend myself, and then I'm gonna ground and pound you and just keep moving forward. That's one of the greatest qualities of him is his aggressiveness moving forward, no matter what. And he just used that to his advantage in that fight.
yeah, and he's good at getting your neck.
Yep, that's a fact. But let's move on to the co-main event of the evening. We got a men's heavyweight matchup between Jake Collier going up against the ageless wonder Andrei Arlovski. We got Jake, the prototype Collier, who comes in at 13-6. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas the pitbull Andrei Arlovski comes in at 33-20, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train out No Excuses MMA and then ATT. The fans are leaning towards 87% Arlovski, whereas only 13 are leaning towards Collier. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I'm very curious to see where you're at with this one now that Andrei Arlovski is back in the gym and off of AEW television.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this short because we've talked about Arlovski a lot, and every time we talk about Andrei Arlovski, we say the same thing. He's ageless. He continues to pull off amazing wins. I think he's the better fighter in this matchup, and I think he's more durable than Collier. He can go those 3 rounds and has good cardio. I have Arlovski winning by decision.
I agree with all those points, but then at the same time, he's been winning with very low volume. I felt like he lost that fight against Vandera. It's
Okay.
just that Vandera was getting to tire out in that 3rd round. But then Jake Collier has, for his body type, has really decent cardio, and he's more vicious of a striker than Vandera is in his fights. He comes in, he throws those haymaker shots at you, but then he attacks the body as well. He has a good lower calf kick, and then he can wrestle on top of it. I feel like he's going to come in there and try and take down Arlovski, and Arlovski has been prone to that in fights.
Yeah.
And with the new kind of counter style that Arlovski has been fighting in the last 4 or 5 fights, it's going to present a challenge for him. I do think that he could win a decision, but I'm going to go with the second round KO by Jake Collier here. I think he gets it done here. I just think that that Andrei Arlovski is prime for the picking here. He's been on a crazy run of late, kind of like towards the end of his career, but it's like, and he lost now, and you might see him retire. And I was going back and watching Collier's fights, and it's crazy to think that he was at one point 170. He was a 170 pounder.
That's crazy.
And then a year later, he goes to light heavyweight to 205. Still look good, but then he took a couple of years off, and then he comes back at weighing 260. So it's like he's changed so much. He was a quick fighter then, but now he's using his weight, and he's utilized his weight more with this grappler. And then in one of his last fights, he got a submission. So it's like it's being able to showcase a little bit more as he's gotten bigger, which is, you wouldn't think of that. You would think that he'd be all about the striking, but he's kind of done a little bit of everything. And I think he's able to take out Arlovski in this one.
Yeah, if he wins, this definitely puts a lot more respect towards his name, because Arlovski is a big win on your career, regardless of where he's at in his career.
Yep. Let's transition to the main event of the evening. We got a men's bantamweight matchup between Rob Font going up against Marlon Vera. Rob Font is coming in at 19-5, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, whereas Marlon Cheeto Vera is coming in at 27-1. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. They train out Lausanne MMA gym and then Team Oyama gym. The fans are leaning towards 55% Font, whereas only 45 are going towards Vera. A razor thin percentage there between the two of them. Jim, what are your thoughts on this main event, and then who you got winning this one?
Yeah, when I started doing my tape study on these two guys, I looked at that line, and it was much more favorable to Rob Font. This is a much more even fight than I expected it to be. Both fighters, if you look at their most recent loss, it's come at the hands of Jose Aldo. While both have fought older and declining fighters as of late, Cheeto's use of the leg kicks has been his biggest strength, while Font's jab that we saw in the Cody Garbrandt fight has been his best tool. That jab can't, like, we talked about Andrei Fili's jab. Andrei Fili's jab is great. Rob Font's is excellent. It doesn't miss. If Font can check the leg kicks and work his jab, I think it's going to be an easy night for him. But if he doesn't check his leg kicks, which he has a tendency of not checking, I think Cheeto is going to chop him down. I think this is a fight I think this has fight of the night written all over it. I would mark this down as fight of the night. I have Rob Font winning by a decision, maybe a split decision, but I'm going decision nonetheless.
I think a big point in this fight is the fact that Rob Font is coming in. This is going to be his third straight main event. He main evented against Garbrandt, he main evented against Aldo, and now he's main eventing against Marlon Vera. He's taking over the fight night scene every time he fights with those main event spots there, which is good for him. That he's getting that recognition now. And I think we got to see how Marlon Vera does with 5 rounds compared to 3. He's been able to utilize those 3 rounds, and I love his style because he comes in there, he is striking. He likes to lead towards the power striking. He hits you with those lethal combinations, but then, like you said, he has those leg kicks. Those are used very great against Sean O'Malley, and that's one of the factors that helped him beat him was the leg kicks and then the check. He knows how to check leg kicks as well. But then I also like his BJJ. He's able to grapple up with you and take you down with it. And he likes to get the body lock, and then he trips you down, and then he gets that ground and pound going. That's one of the things that he utilized against Davey Grant in their matchup on Fight Night last year was the body lock. It got him down, and he was able to steal the second half of the fight that way. But against a guy with great movement, a great jab, and just great cardio, he might have issues with him on the feet. I think if this fight stays on the feet, he's going to get pieced up by that jab. I think the high volume, high octane movement of Rob Font is going to be too much for him. He's going to have to go towards the clinch game to slow him down. If he can do that, he can possibly win this fight and possibly knock him out. But I see this being Rob Font by decision. I think his volume and movement is going to be too much for him. And I do see Rob Font get taken down once or twice, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make a difference in helping Marlon Vera win this.
Yeah, this is going to be a great fight, man.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more. Do you think that this is the fight of the night?
I think either this fight's going to be fight of the night, or I'm going to go with Elkins versus Connelly. I think one of those two fights is going to come out there, or maybe this is a fight of the night, and then the winner of that Elkins Connelly fight gets fighter of the night. So performance of the night.
Performance of the night.
Yeah, but I do think that this is going to be up there.
Yeah,
easily.
I agree.
But other than that, that'll wrap things up with tonight's UFC Vegas 53 4-card breakdown. Before we get going, I just want to give it out some of my betting odds right here. Right now, I'm going to lean towards Tatsuro Taira by inside the distance here. I feel like he's going to get this fight either by knockout or submission. So I think going inside the distance is a perfect bet here, especially since he has the capability of doing both of those. I'm going to lean towards Natan Levy by sub here. The fact that all Levy's wins have been primarily by sub, it makes me lean towards him here. And then another one that I'm going towards is Andrei Fili here. I'm going to go with him by decision. I was thinking towards money line, but I think with possibly him being the favorite, more than likely, if I can knock off some of that odds and make it more favorable for betting, I think decision's the way to go because I do like the chin of Breeden. So if I go by decision, it's going to give us better odds there. So those are the three that I'm going to go with on Vegas 53.
3 safe bets.
Yeah, definitely safe bets here. But other than that, we're going to get going. Next week, we're going to be, of course, doing our 4-card breakdown for UFC 274, which is headlined by 2 title fights. You got Charles Oliveira going up against Justin Gaethje, and then you got the rematch between Rose Namajunas going up against Carla Esparza. But before we get going, I just want to get another shout out to our sponsor, High Tide Herbal. As you see down below, promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. And then, of course, this is Cage My IQ. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button down below. Also hit the like button, and then please hit us up in the comment section. Let's get the comment section rolling and get a lot of input on this fight card, UFC Vegas 53. But other than that, we're going to get going. I'm your host, Cage. This is my co-host, Jim. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.